All right, thanks everybody. Let's get started so we can get through agenda review and our work session today. So we're starting off with a couple words from our relatively new planning PDS director and senior manager of planning, Maureen Brewer and Josh Wilson, and I'll let them just go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. I just wanted to come and introduce myself. As Crystal said, Maureen Brewer. I'm our new Planning and Development Services Director. So just wanted to make sure that you all had a face to the name and were familiar with me. I'm sure we'll get to know each other as we go along. But I've been at the city for about 8 years, started out as the Our Path Home coordinator, so coordinating our community's response to homelessness. Did that for 3 or 4 years and then moved into the senior manager role. So I've been overseeing our affordable housing efforts across the city for the last several years before moving into this role 2 short months ago. It already seems longer. But I just wanted to come, like I said, and introduce myself, get to know this body a little bit better. And then also wanted to share out that our team has been working very hard on another zoning ordinance amendment or a proposal for one. And we will be in front of council at a work session tomorrow afternoon. So in that presentation or in the zoning ordinance amendment that we've been working on, there's a couple things. One, another set of technical edits akin to the ones that you all saw in the first kind of major zoning ordinance amendment from earlier this year. And then we're also working on a set or have been working on a set of, I want to say, 5 or 6 policy topics. And you're probably familiar with those by and large. So EV parking requirements, bike parking, our housing and sustainability incentives, and a handful of others. So we'll be at work session with council tomorrow. Invite you to tune into that, and then expect to submit that application this month, hopefully. And then that means we will likely be in front of this body in February.
Thank you all. Promise you won't be here till midnight, like the last time you saw me. Josh Wilson, a little bit of background about me. I've been with the city for a total of 18 years now. Surprisingly, I was with the city for 11 years, left for a couple of years, and I've been back for 7 years now. Just moved from the design review and historic preservation manager into the senior planning manager role. Excited for the new responsibilities. Might see you all more, depending on the applications that come through, but look forward to continuing to work together and under Maureen's leadership. Really excited about basically everything. I think we're headed in a really good direction right now. So just want to say hi to some of you again. I know some of you I haven't met or had the opportunity to work with, so look forward to that as well. Thank you.
You guys have any questions for him?
What's their favorite Thanksgiving dinner meal? What? Anything?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Torres.
It's not really a question. I just it's a comment. I'm very excited to have somebody in this position who comes from the affordability side. I work at one of our local nonprofits that struggles with that all the time. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
All right, awesome. Short and sweet. So we can get going with our agenda review, and then you guys can have a nice long break for when food arrives. So starting off tonight, we've got minutes from the work session and hearings from November 3rd and November 10th. So we can try for consent on those or add those to the consent agenda. And then miraculously, we have no deferral requests this month. So all 4 we will be doing today. So number one is CUP 2523 and CVA 2552 with a subdivision sub 2545 for Centurion Engineers LLC, it's Coy subdivision, and it's at 2701 South Pond Street. It's a CUP to exceed the density limit of 5 units per acres in the B1 airport influence area, as well as a variance to deviate from the access and connectivity requirements, as well as a residential subdivision comprised of 7 buildable and 3 common lots on 0.9 acres and an R2 AIO residential compact with airport influence area overlay zone. I really love making these legals and reading them aloud. We are recommending denial on this, so we will be hearing this evening. Item 2 is sub 2556 Harlow subdivision located at 5917 West Clinton Street. This is a combined prelim and final plat for an industrial subdivision comprised of just 1 buildable lot on 1.1 acres in an I1 or industrial light zone. We are recommending approval and we haven't received any comments, so we can try for consent on item 2. Item 3 is CUP 2531 and CVA 2548 for GGLO. It's located at 1080 West Front Street. It's a conditional use permit for an allowed use with alternative zone specific standards, as well as a number of variances from the vehicle parking location and design and required bike counts on 0.89 acres in an MX5 or mixed use downtown zone. We did initially have a partial approval, partial denial of the variances. But we received word from the applicant today that they'd like to drop the 2 variance requests that we were recommending denial on. So if everyone is okay with that and we don't have anyone show up, we can try for consent on that. And then last but not least, we have item 4, which is a big one. So stay with me here. We got CUP 2521, CPA 254, CR 2514 and sub 2542 for the Land Architect LLC. It's the Rose Street Cottages subdivision. This is located at 6300 North Rose Street. It is a modification of a conditional use permit to expand an assisted living facility, a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use designation from suburban to compact, a rezone of approximately 3.64 acres from R1A to R2, and a prelim plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 3 buildable lots, again, on that I guess I've got 2 numbers here, 3.46 acres in the pending R2 zone. We are recommending approval, but we did receive some testimony in opposition, so we will be hearing that this evening. So as I have it right now, and then we can open it up if anyone has any questions, as we can try for consent on our minutes, all 4 of those. Item 2, and item 3, and we'll be hearing items 1 and 4.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Shaver.
Thank you. Question for Crystal. And Crystal, I realize we're in work session. I just want to make sure I understand on item number 3.
Mhm.
The applicant is in agreement with the conditions of the staff report related to those 2 variance requests. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
To say it like plainly, they are in agreement with all terms and conditions of the staff report.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Because they were requesting a much lower number of short-term stalls than you were proposing an alternate reduction. And they're now in agreement with that.
Yes, there are like 6 requests, but I believe the 2 that we were recommending denial on were the ones of the actual count. So the long-term cargo and then the short-term visitor, they have essentially dropped those requests and agree with the terms and conditions.
Okay,
So-
great. Thank you for clarifying.
Chair,
Commissioner Stefansik, right?
thank you. I have a question here for Crystal
Mhm.
on the same point that was just brought up. Will they have to submit or re-come to the planning and zoning with renewed or different designs?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Stefansik, that's a great question. No, they had initially included plans that showed that they have space for all of those. That was something that was in the staff report. And so the plans are in the record. And so they would just build it as such. And
Okay.
so again, if it would be, we'd have to put on the record during the building of the consent agenda that this is the case, that they are in fact in agreement with all the terms and conditions of the staff report. And if that is the case and no one has shown up to to testify in opposition, then it is at y'all's discretion to put that on the consent agenda.
What if I have questions about some of the design, specifically around the bike parking. When would I make those or ask those questions to get answers from the developer or from us?
Well, it is again at this commission's discretion on whether or not to place it on the consent agenda. So if folks have questions about that, that's certainly something that we could hear it. There is a design review component to this as well, which would be more of the design. But again, it's at your discretion. So if we wanted to pull it from consent, that is also an option.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there is silence and your dinner approaching. So if there are no other questions, we can let you guys have a break to eat and get started at 6. Pausing and seeing no eye contact. Continuing to pause. I
Yeah,
will pause.
so this would be a good question on taking the temperature on item number 3, whether it goes to consent or whether this commission wants to hear it. It's a conditional use permit. I don't know if Crystal, you prefer us to discuss this during the hearing portion or if it's or now on whether or not we should move forward with a full hearing on it, or if no one opposes it, to go to consent.
Mr. Chair, it sounds like we don't have a preference there as long as no specifics are discussed right now during the work session. General procedural questions or like what we are looking at under these applications. Again, the reason for the season that you are hearing this is they are asking to deviate from that one zone specific standard. And that's where the CUP comes in. The use is allowed as shown in the in our code, and then the variance requests as well.
Does
I
anybody
might
have
just
any?
encourage everybody to think about maybe what their questions
Yeah.
are and if it is in line with why you are what you're deciding on this evening, which is the alternative to the zone specific standards.
We don't have to have an answer right now. We can, when we reconvene, we can have that discussion. So if people want to think about it, certainly can. Okay, sounds like we want to think about it. So
Dinner time it is. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. However, this is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begins with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed. Okay. Is this better? All righty. I'm gonna keep going. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you're attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
thank you, Crystal.
We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances and appeals, and recommendations to city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it is important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Danley,
Here.
Moore. Here. Schaefer,
Here.
Teja,
Here.
Torres,
Here.
Stone,
Here.
Stallings,
Here.
Stefancic,
Here.
all present.
Okay, as mentioned, we're going to start this evening with the creation of the consent agenda. First up are meeting and work session meeting minutes from November 3rd and the November 10th meetings. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and place, unless objected, work session minutes and meeting minutes from November 3rd and November 10th on the consent agenda. The first item that's eligible for the consent agenda. Let me make sure of that. I don't have anybody signed up for item number 1 on our sheet, but I know we have, it says that we're, obviously going to be hearing it. So it's conditional use and preliminary plat, but just making sure we're still hearing that.
Mr. Chair, we are recommending denial on item 1.
That's why. Thank you. Good catch. Okay.
Got you.
Moving on, item number 2 is eligible for the consent agenda. So this is SUB 25-56, Harlow subdivision located at 5917 West Clinton Street, a preliminary and final plat for an industrial subdivision comprised of one buildable lot on 1.1 acres in an industrial zone, industrial light zone. Is the applicant present? Okay, and do you agree with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Great, let the record reflect that the applicant is in chambers and does agree with the terms and conditions of the staff report. Now, I have nobody signed up for item number 2. Is there anybody in chambers? Hold on. Anybody in chambers or online who wishes to testify in opposition of item number 2, SUB 25-56? None in chambers and nobody online. Okay, let's go ahead and move item number 2 to the consent agenda. I now have a sign up for item number 3. So we're going to go ahead and hear item number 3 as well as item number 4, which means that the construction of the consent agenda is finished and is eligible to be approved.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as constructed.
Very good. I have a motion by Commissioner Moore to
Second.
approve the consent agenda and a second by Commissioner Torres. Any discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Danley,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Teja,
Aye.
Torres,
Aye.
Stone,
Aye.
Stallings,
Aye.
Stefancic,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Very good. That takes us to item number 1, CUP 25-23 and CVA 25-52, as well as SUB 25-45. This is Centurion Engineers. This is a preliminary plat as well as a conditional use permit located at 2701 South Pond Street. And Doug, take it away.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you tonight is a conditional use permit, preliminary plat, and variance application for a proposal located at 2701 South Pond Street. A conditional use permit is required to exceed the permitted density of 5 units per acre within the airport influence area B1. Preliminary plat for 7 buildable and 3 common lots, and a variance to deviate from the requirement to have sidewalk on both sides of a proposed private drive will also be discussed in the presentation. The subject property received approval for an 11-unit development with a rezone in 2007. The airport expressed opposition at the time, and the guiding policies within Blueprint Boise directed density to 3 units per acre back then, which has since been increased to 5. It's important to note that in 2007, the airport influence area only existed within the comprehensive plan, but has since been codified with the 2023 zoning code adoption. A conditional use permit is required, as I mentioned, to exceed the 5 units per acre density within the airport influence area B1 on a case-by-case basis to specifically address impacts of airport operations. The 65 DNL contour crosses the subject property, which will be discussed later, but is unique to the property as not all B1 properties have the 65 DNL contour. The FAA uses the 65 DNL as an area where impacts to noise from airport operations are considered significant, and grant assurances from the FAA require appropriate zoning practices to ensure compatible uses near the airport. The purpose of the airport influence area is shown on screen, which includes compliance with federal guidance and compatibility. The subject property is further identified as an incompatible land use on the airport's 2020 noise exposure map as seen in the blue oval, further showing incompatibility for increased density above 5 units per acre with the subject property. As such, the planning team does not support the conditional use permit. The proposed subdivision would consist of 7 buildable and 3 common lots with detached sidewalk along the northern side of the private drive, Coy Lane. Abiding by the codified density limit of 5 units per acre, the property could be divided into 4 residential units, which is still greater than the existing single-family house, while protecting the interests of the airport. The variance is also not supportable because the density is not supportable. And if the codified density of 5 units per acre, a variance would not be required as the properties could be accessed by a single common drive rather than a private street. In conclusion, the planning team recommends denial of all 3 applications, and as shown on screen, a reminder, the subdivision is a recommendation to City Council. The conditional use permit would be a final decision by Planning and Zoning Commission that could be appealed to City Council, and the variance is a final decision that can be requested for reconsideration. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Very good. Okay, is the applicant present?
Okay, come on up, and if you would, state your name and address for the record, please.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is David Crawford with Centurion Engineers to represent the applicant tonight. Appreciate the staff's review of the project. We certainly went through a lot of gyrations on this project, and the staff was pretty patient with us as we tried to make it through there. So we appreciate the input that they had. One of the items.
Can you just real quick throw me an address of any?
Oh, 2323 South Vista Avenue,
Great.
Boise.
Thank you.
I usually catch that.
That's all right. No problem.
One of the things that brings us here tonight is because I've had several projects that I've presented to the city of Boise that are very similar in nature. And every time I go up before city council, they always ask me, can we get any more lots on here? And so we've taken that to heart because most of the time we can't. We're trying to get the most that we can get. In this particular area, R2 zones are pretty flexible when it comes to density. This isn't an R2 zone. Where most of the area is single family residential, but I would like to point out that directly south of this property, there's 2 projects that are multifamily, and both of them are 14 units to the acre, more or less. So we're asking essentially for 7, which is 2 or 3 additional lots, depending on how the density is calculated, I suppose. We understand that the airport overlay district is there to protect the airport. However, what the requirement is, this property or this project doesn't affect the airport. It affects the construction standards in our area. So in order to comply with code requirements, we actually have to increase, insulation or the decibel that can be heard inside the home. So what we're asking for is essentially 2 or 3 additional lots, and that's all. we did have neighborhood meetings, 2 of them to be exact. None of the neighbors objected to this because it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And so we believe that the project this is a really good project to have this conditional use permit to have those extra homes in there. We don't believe that we're asking for any special right or privilege with the variance request or with the conditional use request, because the variance request for the sidewalk on the south side has been granted to other projects for the very recently in the city of Boise. We don't believe that we're asking for increased density that's beyond that's already been afforded for other properties in the area. We believe we're consistent. We're actually under what other projects have been provided. We believe that this project, the way we presented it, will be an attractive asset to the city of Kuna or city of Boise, provide the housing, and with the addition of the 2 or 3 lots, it'll provide additional needed housing for the city of Boise. And this is a great opportunity and a great area to do so. And I'll stand for any questions you have.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, David. We're going to turn our attention real quick if there's anybody here from the neighborhood association, and that neighborhood association is the Hillcrest Neighborhood Association. Ashley Malloy, maybe anybody else online? I don't have anybody signed up, so nobody from Hillcrest, nobody online either. Okay, in that case, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions from the commission.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, this is a
You
hot one.
beat me.
I think Commissioner Torres okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. My question is for staff. We had a hearing last year, early on my tenure on the commission in the Airport Overlay District, and there were a whole bunch of discussion. There was a whole bunch of discussion in that hearing about the FAA's requirements for that area of the city, essentially. I know we discussed at the time the city, might need to revisit these criteria, and it just would be really helpful, I think, to get some clarification on exactly what is required, because there's a section in the packet on page 54, that talks about the proposal for the 3 additional homes outweighing the potential impacts to FAA funding on the economy of Boise. Can we get, my question is very broad and I apologize, but can we get some clarification on what exactly is required by the FAA, what the risks are to the city for approving something at higher density? And, if, I guess the other question would be, is the city going to revisit this at any time in the near future? Thank you.
Commissioner Danley, Commissioner Torres, as shown on the screen, this is the specific FAA grant assurance that was provided to me from the airport in one of their comments that was submitted for this application. So this does pretty explicitly state that there should be appropriate zoning laws to restrict the use of land within the airport. This specific property as well is pretty close to the airport itself. I know there was a recent project also within the B1 area, as you can kind of see in the top left in the white circle, kind of hard to see, apologize on that. And then the blue circle is this current proposal. So you can also see geographically the difference between the 2 proposals, the one that you referenced and the one before us tonight. This one is very close to that airport. It has that 65 DNL contour running through it. That other proposal, pretty far away from the 65 DNL contour, even though it's still within that B1 area. So this is an example of where kind of that case-by-case determination for the conditional use permit really comes into play in regards to, revisiting the airport influence area overlay kind of discussions. I don't have any information on that at this moment. So yeah.
Mr. Chair, follow up.
Go ahead.
I think in that previous hearing, and that's the last time I'll reference that for now. There was the discussion about how in other cities, and before I say this, I understand that we're bound by Boise Code, we're bound by Idaho state law, we're bound by the agreements we've made with the FAA as well, and regulations and all that. But there was a discussion about how in other cities that are denser and bigger than we are, you do tend to have more dense development very close to the airport, and those airports tend to function fine. So I guess, I know I'm kind of, harping on this here, but I guess my question is, why is it allowed in you probably can't answer this, but why is it allowed in those cities but wouldn't be allowable in our city? If that makes sense.
Yes, Commissioner Torres. I do believe a lot of those instances, it's where the urban footprint was established before those airports really kind of geared up to their current functional status. Whereas in this case, there's still those opportunities to provide those adequate zoning protections.
Commissioner Moore.
Sure. So another question for staff. So if I'm looking at staff packet page 7 or our packet page 53, you can see it's got the little diagram where the 65 DNL contour crosses across the site. So where does that 5 acres per or 5 unit per acre requirement kick in? Does it kick in on the north side of that 65 or on the south side of that?
Commissioner Moore, that 5-acre requirement is for the entire B1 area. The 65 DNL is specifically a reference point the FAA and the Boise Airport also use. So this, on the map, you can see where I had those 2 projects highlighted, pretty much those 2 orange areas shown on the screen. That is the B1 area where there is that density restriction. So any development that would come in within those areas would require that 5 units per acre, regardless of the base zone.
Okay, so Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
to follow up, so the B1 zone is what's triggering the 5 units per acre. The 65 DNL is kind of also triggering it, but it's triggering some sound mitigation as well. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, gotcha. That's all for me for the moment.
Any other questions?
I got a couple. So since this last discussion that we had a year ago or 2 years ago, that now our code has been fully codified to capture what was otherwise an overlay district. Does that mean that all of the residential units that are in proximity of this are now non-conforming?
Commissioner Danley, I do believe any residential within the airport influence area of A and B, so the blue and the light green, are considered legal non-conforming if they were established prior to the adoption within code. With airport influence area B1, I do believe as well, if it's exceeding the density of 5 units per acre, they are legal non-conforming as well.
So the applicant referenced, and maybe we can pull up a closer image of the parcel. Some of the mixed or some of the multifamily that's a couple lots just to the south. So you're telling me now that the action that we've taken has now made all of that non-conforming?
That is correct, Chairman.
Okay. Another question would be, the applicant is requesting a deviation for the sidewalk, and I guess I don't recall off the top of my head, is the street going to be a private street or a public street? And go ahead.
It's going to be a private street.
So then I'm assuming oftentimes in the private street, it's going to be narrower. Maybe the applicant can answer this. Is parking permitted on the south side of that street?
Chairman, Commissioners, David Crawford again, 2323 South Vista Avenue. It is a private street. We haven't received a request from the fire department to restrict parking on one side or the other. However, it is narrower. It's a 28-foot back-to-back curve on the front, and it's 24 near the west end of the project, but we'd be more than happy to sign that no parking on one side. There is adequate off-street parking as we're having garages and a driveway for each one of these units. So, but we'd certainly be more than happy to sign no parking on the south side of the street.
My thought in where I'm asking is that if people park on that side and are passengers and get out of the vehicle and there's no sidewalk or stable ground to get off, that's where my logic is going.
We are providing sidewalk
on the
north side. Right. So if people parked on the south side of the street, they'd walk across the street to that sidewalk.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Any other questions? I got one last one, but other question. Commissioner Stallings?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. So, as Commissioner Danley just mentioned, the other project that's in that B1 65 area boundary was approved at a higher density rate. Doesn't that set how does that work and this one doesn't, I guess, is poorly framed. I apologize, but
Yes, Commissioner Stallings. The main difference between those two projects, as you can see, like I said, the white circle being the one from about a year ago that's been referenced, and the blue circle being the one before us tonight, is it's really hard to see here, but there is a very faint pink line. That pink line is the 65 DNL contour. It does cross through this blue circle, which is the proposal tonight. The white circle over here does not cross that 65 DNL. The 65 DNL actually ends within kind of around here, around Victory and Cole-ish. So that's really the main difference is even though the other proposal was in that B1 area, it was viewed differently because it didn't have that 65 DNL.
I have a follow-up.
Correct.
And the 65 DNL is about the noise decibel, right?
Correct. It is the noise decibel from airport operations. So it's the day-night average sound.
And that's tied to the FFA regulations and grant applications.
Correct.
But otherwise, this is allowed in this zoning.
Yes, if it wasn't for the airport influence area, the density that they're requesting would be permitted in the R2 zone. But because it is within that B1 airport influence area overlay, that's where the density restrictions coming in. And with the sound contours that are tied to the FAA funding regulations and things like that, that's where the city is taking the stance of this is not an appropriate place to exceed that 5-unit density. Whereas the other proposal didn't have the noise kind of aspects of it, as it wasn't near the 65 DNL. I believe it was a mile out.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have one more
Go
question.
ahead, Commissioner Torres.
My question is again for staff. Just to clarify, and you probably already said this, I apologize. The purple is the airport influence overlay?
Yes, so I should have put a legend on this. My apologies. The purple is airport influence area C, which residential is allowed. No density restrictions there. There's just, I believe, some insulation requirements for all construction. The orange is airport influence area B1. Residential is allowed only at a density of 5 units per acre unless the CUP is approved. And there's only these two little pockets here. The green is airport influence area B. No residential is allowed whatsoever. And then airport influence area A, which is pretty much the airport itself in the directly immediate areas. No residential is allowed there either. And they all have different levels of required insulation for any kind of developments whatsoever.
Mr. Chair, for one last
ahead.
follow-up.
Mhm.
You may not know this, but do you know what the approximate square footage of the green area and the purple area are? An estimate's fine.
I'm not confident on answering that at this time.
Square miles, I meant to say, not footage.
Yeah, I do know that the B1 area is the smallest out of the 4 overlays. That much I know.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Schaefer.
Doug, question for you on so the permitted via the CUP, the permitted is 5 units per acre, correct? So it would be the existing home, if this were per code,
Mhm.
be the existing home and 4 additional lots.
Commissioner Schaefer, if it was to follow the letter of the code without doing the CUP process, it would be the existing home plus 3 additional units.
3 units.
Since the parcel as a whole is 0.9 acres.
Right.
So it would be 4 units total. And those could all be accessed off of a common drive, which then would no longer require the variance application as well.
Good
So it
stuff.
would be all just a preliminary plat if it complied with the base densities.
Okay. And then is the existing home eligible for like an ADU?
Commissioner Schaefer, the answer is yes.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, question?
Commissioner Stefancic.
Yes, and you might not be able to answer this, and I don't think we have anybody from the airport on how these decibel levels are calculated. Are they regular commercial airlines? I know we have A10s over there. In their letter in the packet here, they allude to F-16s coming in 2027, which are substantially louder than the A10s. How will that change the decibels here in this map?
Commissioner Stefanik, I am not sure on how the contours will be adjusted with those F-16 coming into the airport. They are going to be significantly louder, so that will very much adjust the contours. And the airport would definitely be one to answer that question more accurately. Based off of the information, I do believe they update the contours every 5 years. So they're probably in the process of updating them soon. But based off the information I have, these are the current contours.
Thank you.
So following up on that, if the presumption is we bring in an aircraft that's even louder and they're going to be updating the contours to reflect the volume that's being put out by a louder aircraft, does it not stand to reason that this map will only grow?
Commissioner Danley, I do believe that is an assertion you could make, yes.
So one of the strong assertions in this in your staff report was the economic element of this, and the notion that the airport to demonstrate compliance and to go after federal grants and that sort of thing needs to demonstrate what this is about, right? So going back to the multifamily that's just to the south of this and the units that were built, do you have any sense of when the multifamily units were built that are in proximity to this particular parcel?
Commissioner Danley, they were constructed, I believe, around 2007 or 2008.
Okay.
Similar to when the initial entitlement on this property was granted. This original entitlement just never, got realized, therefore it expired, but the rezone stayed.
So in the and again, there's nobody here from the airport to answer this question, but in the near 20 years since those units were put in, I'm curious how much economic activity has occurred at the airport since then in terms of the construction of all the new parking garages, new terminal, all of the things that we know have occurred so how has these units and others presumably in proximity to it hampered their ability to get federal grants?
Commissioner Danley, I don't have that information available right now.
Okay.
I do know, however, that the airport has stated in their comments that they've been seeing increased activity of 6%, I believe, year over year, and they're continuing to expect that increase, especially with Concourse A going underway, and then the third airport or the third runway to the south of the airport coming online for commercial use.
6% of what?
Just total growth.
Of the airport activity, you mean? Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, looks like 1993 was when those
Oh,
multifamilies were built.
1993. So 30 years. 30. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Crystal.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I have
Torres.
one more. I lied. My question is for the applicant. As far as the units that are proposed here, do you know, as far as affordability goes, what you anticipate these might go for? Are they going to be rentals? Are they going to be for sale? How much are you thinking they might, go for somebody purchasing them? Just trying to get an idea, because as we've discussed, affordability is an important part of the city's goals with getting more housing built. Thank you.
Yeah. Excuse me, Chairman, Commissioner Torres. I can't speak to exactly what the price point would be because it just keeps moving up. But I do know that we have smaller footprint homes here with single car garages. Some of them will be 2-story. I suspect that they'll be more affordable than other developments in the area because of the way they're just a smaller footprint. So more people will be able to afford them.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Looks like we don't have any. Okay. We'll go ahead and move forward and open it up to the public, but I have nobody signed up on any of the sign up sheets, and it looks like there's nobody online. Is there anybody in chambers who wishes to testify on item number 1? Make sure. Yeah. Okay. Seeing none. Any rebuttal? Sorry, it's a stupid lame planning and zoning joke. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and call it a public hearing is up, and then we'll go ahead and make a decision on this. Item number 1, CUP 25-23, conditional use permit to exceed the density limit and SUB 25-45 preliminary plat for the residential subdivision comprised of 7 buildable lots and the request for the variance to deviate with the sidewalk exception.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Torres.
I'm not prepared to make a motion, but I wonder if you'll allow me a little bit of discussion before we make a motion.
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you. I'm struggling with this one. I went to bat last year on one and got outvoted by a supermajority on this commission. So I don't know that I'm prepared to necessarily do that again in this case. Looking at the map, especially the purple map, the larger area, that's a lot of square mileage in the city that is pretty much limited in some way as far as the density allowed or the noise requirements or other limitations at a time when we, you know, I say this every week or every month, we desperately need more housing. You know, I'm also struggling with the idea of 4 versus 7. I think that was the total number. I don't have it in front of me. You know, it's one thing if it was like 30 units proposed, but it seems like it's not that many more units being proposed in this area. So I really would like to get clarification from the city about what the FAA specifically requires of us and how they might, for lack of a better word, punish us if we go too far in that regard. Because we're up here, we're tasked with approving projects that can address other problems we have in our community, and more housing does also generate economic, you know, growth in the city. So I'm just kind of putting that out there for discussion. Again, I don't know which way I'm going to go on this one, but I wanted to just put that out there on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Torres. Just so reference, in our code, it's under 11-2-07 under the overlay districts. There's just some of the language in there. Section C talks about specifically this area B1, the requirement for decibel reduction, and it gets into the 5 residential unit discussion, just in case anybody's got it up and is curious. Is there a motion or any discussion we want to?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sahel.
I too am struggling with this one. I see Commissioner Torres's point about, you know, what's the difference between 4 and 7, but I guess maybe I'm looking at this through a different lens in that if any of you have spent any time on the bench up on Columbia Village at certain points of the day, you can feel some homes, I don't want to say move, shake, but you can feel you can hear the noise from the planes that have the flight pattern that go up near Micron. So I'm looking at this from the noise perspective, and having, you know, 4 or 5 homes versus 7. The staff report indicated that the applicant did not address any further mitigation measures to try to address the decibel concern. So you know, maybe if the applicant would consider doing some additional mitigation to insulate those structures so that the noise is not as high, then maybe I would be amenable to it. But at this point, I'm not quite sure that I am.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I'll make a motion. I move that we deny CUP 25-23 and recommend denial of SUB 25-45 based on the terms listed in the staff report.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Moore and a second by Commissioner Schaefer to deny the conditional use permit and recommend denial for the preliminary plat. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I'll start off. So I think Commissioner Seha's point is well spoken. Yeah, first, I think there's 2 pieces to this particular application that's different than the previous application. One specific piece, and that's that 65 DNL contour. That means that it's a lot louder here. It's in the same B1 zone, but it is, you know, in that contour area, and that does affect kind of the noise level that we're anticipating whereas that previous application was well outside of that. So that's the first piece of that. And I think that those two characteristics of this particular site kind of play together in making the 5 units per acre kind of doubly make sense at that point. You have this overlay existing here, and you have an additional kind of reinforcement that this does experience that additional noise. And then I agree with Commissioner Seha. I think, you know, there's no discussion of additional mitigation efforts to attempt to reduce that and maybe appease the airport's, you know, comfort zone as whether they're even willing to entertain something like this. Maybe that would get there. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think some of those mitigation efforts were definitely per the staff report a little bit missed. So for those reasons, in support of the staff report.
Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Stallings.
I agree with a lot about what it's been said up here. I'm still really struggling with this in that, you know, what you said, Commissioner, about the economic drivers here, which one is a more predominant feature of prosperity in our community. That's hard to regulate and hard to see in this. The noise ordinance, I'm really on either, I can really argue this either way. Ultimately, though, I really see myself wanting to approve this application in that I think that this is compact variety of housing that is applicable if someone's willing to have that ambiance a couple of times a day. I see a lot of sides, but yeah, I will be voting no for this.
Okay, thank you. Any other conversations?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
As the seconder of the motion, certainly felt appropriate. I comment here. Agree with the motion, of course, and all the comments from Commissioner Moore. I think the staff report did a nice job of summarizing the challenges. The city's not saying no to housing here, but they are saying make it per the code. Now, and let's be clear that, you know, this code is put together for comfort of the residents, right? They're living in these structures. So you can still build 4 homes here, 3 new homes, right? 4 new homes, and they have the existing home, and the existing home could have an ADU. So you can still get residential on this parcel. The city is just being clear that we want to be building in the appropriate places for the comfort of our citizens, right? That's where I'm coming down, okay? You made the point earlier up here in the discussion about, you know, homes on Columbia Village, right? And you can feel the aircraft, you can hear them, right? So I'm not going to sit here and argue with, you know, directive of the studies by the airport that indicate where it's appropriate to put housing or where the city thinks it's appropriate to put housing. Again, you know, the city is saying, let's do it per the code and we don't have a problem. And that's where I'm coming down with this one. So totally comfortable if they want to come back. That also does check a couple other boxes to come back. The sidewalk variance is eliminated. We're in just a shared driveway condition for the new properties. So I think that solves many issues coming back and doing this per the code. So totally comfortable with staff report and in agreement with that and agree with the motion, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Torres.
I already said a lot of my thoughts beforehand, but I guess I'm gonna reluctantly support the motion. I do, like I said, I do encourage the city to revisit this part of code because it seems like it is binding us in a lot of ways long term. Obviously, the DNL is important. We had a very long discussion about that last time. So I'm going to reluctantly support the motion, but I do really think we need to try to figure out a way to allow more stuff to be built in this area without falling afoul of the FAA and federal regulations. Thank you.
Mr. Doan.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be in support of the motion along the lines with what even Commissioner Seha, Moore, and Schaefer said. I agree with their perspective on it. The B1 is the trigger for the 5 units per acre. Right? Yeah. And I think we need to stick with that condition. So I'm in agreement with staff report as well.
Anything? You don't have to.
Chair.
Commissioner Stefancic.
I feel like I'll join the party here. Yeah, it's a real tough one. I applaud the developer for trying to maximize this in what the city and the code is trying to do. It's unfortunate that it falls right here in a tough area. And like other commissioners have said, I think the city needs to figure out how to work through this and consider that impact because it's counterproductive in what we're trying to accomplish here. But I still think you can increase the density of this area. It may not be as many as we would love to see. And so I'm going to support the measure.
Very good. I'm not going to be supporting the measure. I think that this issue continues to rear its head. And I think that we have got to get a handle on this because I believe this issue is choking this city in a lot of ways. This influence area continues to come up every single year. And when you look at those contour maps and you realize the very large percentage of our city limits that's controlled by it when we are at a crisis with housing, to me, we've got to figure out a different way. We've had discussions about this issue in the past too with respect to the 5-unit, and it's been, I'm not going to use the word arbitrary. I think that's a little bit strong, but there's never been a great discussion on the true difference between allowing 4 homes there versus allowing 7 homes there. What we can do as a conditional use permit is we can choose to mitigate that. We can say that you'll get your conditional use permit, but you do need to require additional insulation and that the sound mitigation needs to be significant in order to handle this 65 dB. When we have units that have been there for nearly 30 years just to the south, and the airport's probably seen billions of dollars of revenues, that doesn't seem to me to be an issue. And furthermore, I think to the applicant's point, the design of these is a product that we do not see. This is a single family unit, 1-car garage that's not in the types of things that we see and part of the market that's missing. And I applaud the applicant for trying to work with this and make something work in terms of a product. So those are my thoughts. I know they're kind of strong, but it's how I feel. So is there any other discussion? We're going to go ahead and clerk call the roll. Any other discussion? Last. Okay. With that, the clerk, please call the roll.
Danley,
No.
Moore,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Teja,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
Stallings,
No.
Stefancic,
Yes.
6 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and take 5, and then we'll come back for item number 3. Okay, let's go ahead and get started again. Moving on to item number 3, this is CUP 25-31 and CVA 25-48 GGLO. It's a conditional use permit for an allowed use with alternative zone specific standards on 0.89 acres in MX5 zone located at 1080 West Front Street. It looks like Dennis or Matt. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, and good evening. As you just said, the item before you is a conditional use permit for an allowed use with alternative form to deviate from the MX5 zone specific standards, along with 6 variance requests to deviate from the requirements of vehicular parking locations and design and required bicycle parking standards as well. These applications, the bundle of applications before you is for the proposed development, which is a 39-story, 451-foot tall mixed-use building containing ground floor amenities, including restaurant, retail space, and a residential lobby with a bike repair station. On top of that is 5 levels of parking with approximately 437 residential units spanning across 32 levels of the structure. First, the requested CUP to deviate from the MX5 design standard requirement of 80% of the street frontage, ground floor street frontage being active. The applicant's proposal includes about 78% street activation. This request is supportable because of the reasons listed on your screen, which are centered around constraints of the property, mainly given the fact that there's not an alley adjacent to the property, which hinder the applicant's ability to comply with this active street frontage requirement. Additionally, the applicant has proposed a mural on the 10th Street frontage to mitigate this lack of activation. Listed here are the 6 variance requests within this application. One of them is for vehicular parking standards for compact spaces to be within the parking garage. And the rest are concerning bike parking counts and locational criteria, and we'll go into these. So the planning team is supportive of and recommends approval of the 4 variance requests listed on your screen for the details summarized here and detailed within the project report. The planning team is not supportive and recommends denial of the 2 variance requests listed on your screen for reasons detailed within the project report. The planning team finds that there's not a hardship that justifies the inability to accommodate these requirements, as the submitted plans demonstrate that there are areas that can accommodate additional cargo and short-term bicycle parking spaces. Thus, granting these 2 variances would conflict with public interest and would create material negative impacts to surrounding properties by not being able to accommodate the various forms of travel, which helps reduce vehicle miles traveled. All of these elements are especially compounded given the fact that the site is adjacent to the 11th Street bikeway to its west. So in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval and denial for these requests as listed on your screen, and I will stand for any questions.
Beck, can you just point of clarity? Believe we had late correspondence that the last 2 on this list, the applicant has since, can you address that just for the record, please?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thank you for the point of order. Correspondence with the applicant today basically aligned with the staff report with the recommendation. And so those 2 variance requests that staff is originally recommending denial on have been withdrawn.
Very good. And just for the commission, so just to make sure we're clear on this, in front of us is the conditional use permit, which addresses the 80% of the site being activated and this being 78, and we'll get into the details of why. But then also these specific requests for variances and how the staff is recommending we judge on each of these, including approval now of the bottom 2 of this list.
Mr. Chair, not approval of the request to deviate from has, as we understand it, and I would wait to have that confirmed by the applicant.
They've been removed.
They've been removed.
Okay, sorry,
not approved.
clarity. Thank you.
But
Thank you.
let's hear maybe from the applicant.
Okay, so the bottom 2 are no longer relevant then. Is that okay? Great. Okay, is the applicant present? Okay, would you please come up, state your name and address for the record, and have up to 20 minutes or so.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you very much for having us here and taking the time to look at this. My name is Sean Kennedy. I'm an architect with GGLO. Address is 113 South 5th, Boise, 83702. As stated, I'll just confirm what staff has said, that we are in agreement with the recommendations from the staff report on all of those counts. What we've proposed is a high density, high quality downtown urban style of development. This is consistent with the Boise policy for the MX5 zone. The nature of these kinds of projects, high-rise mixed-use projects, though, is that there are a lot of services and uses that have to come together, particularly on the lower levels. And as we've worked through the code, some of those things we're creating conflicts that didn't allow us to design the project. In the proposal that the staff have recommended, though, we do believe that all of their recommendations will allow us to fit all of those things together. So we are supportive of their recommendations. So that's all that I wanted to address, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, hold tight. Make sure that the neighborhood association, if they're in attendance, let me just make sure online. Sometimes they sneak in. So this would be the downtown association, if I'm not mistaken, right? But it looks like anybody in chambers. I know we have somebody signed up to testify momentarily from the public, but not from the neighborhood association. And then it looks like nobody online, just to confirm. Okay. All right. With that, go ahead and open it up to questions from the commission.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Torres.
Just to clarify, if we were to approve this, we would approve without additional conditions. It would be approved based on all the terms and conditions of staff report because the variances have been withdrawn. Is that correct?
So the two specific variances at the bottom of this screen, so the amount of short-term bicycle parking and the maximum percentage of long-term cargo bike parking have been pulled. And there's no longer a request to deviate from our standards. The remaining list, so the top 5, still are relevant in that there's been a request for variances that are stated there, and staff's recommendations of each of the variants as well as the actual CUP itself are all approved in conjunction with the terms and conditions that are put into the staff report. Yeah. Okay. Okay, any questions from the commission?
Yeah, Chair.
Commissioner Stefancic.
Yeah. I have my question is mostly around this a variance to increase the maximum percentage of long-term bicycle parking space that requires the use of stairs or an elevator. Can you talk about where the location of the elevators are? I'm not an architect, but I feel like I identified correctly where they are. And can you explain how an individual who needed to use an elevator to get their bike can get to the elevator and to the bike parking space? Can you walk me through what that process would look like?
Sure. Again, Sean Kennedy, GGLO Architects, 113 South 5th, Boise. Yes, the primary entrance for someone with bicycle is to come through what we've called the bicycle lounge, which on the image that's on the screen right now, it's the yellow area that's kind of stepped up on the upper left-hand side. That's facing 11th Street and facing the new bike corridor bike improvements that have come along there. So what we envision is a dedicated door for bike riders to come in off the street. At that location, they come in, there'll be a place there that we envision being able to sit down, take off your bicycle shoes or your gear, and perhaps get a cup of coffee in that space. There'll also be a couple of stations for cleaning and repairs. And then there will be some storage for bicycles at that location. They'll then go, you'll be able to go back through that. There's a door that comes through sort of roughly in the middle, and you see the elevators located in the red square on the screen there. And so there will be a dedicated access through there. And there is in particular one of those elevators that will be able to accommodate the large bicycles.
Okay, so just to be clear, so an individual would have to walk their bike through 2 doors, door openings from 11th Street?
Yes.
Yeah, because there's that little kind of entryway. So they'd have to get through both of those doors. I'm just going to assume that they're going to be automatic open and then
Yeah.
hold open so you can easily walk your bike
Mhm.
through.
Yeah.
Because they're a little narrow. And then, so then they would have to navigate all the way through past all the bike parking. And then do they come out the back door, the back side, past all the parking?
Yes.
And then
there-
they walk through a side all the way down to where the elevators are to take the elevators up to the second floor if they need an elevator to get their bike up and not use the runnels on the stairs that
Yeah.
you
To
highlighted.
be clear, there's no parking on this ground level. No vehicle parking,
Yeah,
car
for
parking
a
on this
bike.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the bike, they would come through what you see is the middle of the corridor, through the bicycle lounge and where the bicycle storage is. And then at the end, you see a pair of doors. You come in and take I guess that's a right-hand turn, and you come down to the elevator core. And the elevators do need to be there. That central core is what is the primary structure for the building.
Mhm. And then go back for the second floor. I don't know if we have a second floor piece up on any of the slides.
So there is, in addition to this, there is a mezzanine with additional bicycle storage.
Okay, the
That's part of that lounge. It's just an overlook.
But they'd be
space.
able to get there with the elevators.
They
to
could
the
get there with the elevators or with the stair that has a runnel.
Okay, and then that's where your additional vertical bike parking would be for short term or long term?
Those are the residents' bicycle
Okay.
parking. The short-term parking for retail and coffee shop, restaurant visitors is on the perimeter. It's on the outside.
Mhm. But then there is also parking for cargo bikes on that first floor,
That is correct.
and then some other select parking, or?
That is correct.
Right, there's a number of those, and then you just have them split with the mezzanine.
That is correct. And there will also be parking areas on the floors above there, on the vehicle parking floors as well.
Oh, okay. Can you, I might have missed those. Where are those in the?
So
where are
in
the
this view that's on
Yeah.
the screen right here, you see the two shaded areas in the corner.
Mhm.
And those
Yep.
are bicycle storage areas.
Okay, and then so in order to access those, a cyclist would bike up the ramps to get there? Is that? or
No,
would
the
they
intent
take-
would be that they would take the elevator up to this level and then there's direct access out.
Oh, cool. That's much better. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so they'd have to go through multiple doors to get to there. And then all those doors would be automatic. I'm a bike commuter and I park inside and I know how challenging
Mhm.
that can be. And the reason why I'm asking this question is I understand the constraints with that, and I love how you've tried to work with this, but I'm just trying to think of a use case, right? I'm walking in with my bike and I have to get through this door and then another door, and then I'm walking through, and then I have a series of other doors to get into an elevator to go to a place to
In
park.
this,
So
yeah,
just
in
wanted to
this
make
case, I
sure.
think it's really just kind of two to get into the elevators. There is a pair of doors that you see there. Those are fire doors that are automatically held open.
Mhm.
So, but there is
Yeah, but the doors to get through the lounge, go through the lounge and all of that, there seem to be ones when you come in, and then at the back of that lounge. Oh, do you go through that corridor? Instead,
No.
you go right through the lobby?
So if you can pan.
That would be
yeah.
easier.
Right. Now, the plan is for someone to come in directly off of 11th through that vestibule. So if you
Yep.
zoom in there just a little bit right there, and then turn and go up into that space. That's the bicycle lounge area. With the cleaning stations and repair
Yeah,
stations.
that's
And then
awesome. Yeah.
storage here, you go through there and then you come down through that corridor there directly to the elevators.
Cool. And yeah, so then you have two more doors to go through. And then those doors are always open in case of.
Correct.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Torres.
my question is for the applicant, so don't sit down. As far as it's mentioned in the report that some of the parking stalls could be potentially converted later into additional units. Can you talk about what that looks like potentially if that were to happen down the road? I know that's not part of this specific approval, but I'm just curious, just for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Commissioner Torres. It's quite an interesting concept, and I think one that the applicant and our team is really excited about, which is anticipating that one day in the future, the way that we all use cars and the way we store cars in an urban environment will eventually evolve. Our client intends to own this property for a very long time and wants to make maximum use of the property in the long term and maintain the value. So we've designed the upper 3 floors of the parking garage with floor-to-floor heights and a column layout that would accommodate one day in the future being converted into residential properties or possibly a commercial use there as well. But we've got the height to be able to do that. We're designing a demountable facade system. So you might notice in the facade, there's sort of a line between the lower 2 parking floors and the upper 3 floors, so that that upper section could be taken down as part of that conversion. And then we have access for mechanical equipment to be able to come in from the back. It's a long-term strategy. So there's nothing specifically designed or proposed at this point, but it is something that we think creates long-term value and potential.
Mr. Chair, another question, completely unrelated, but as far as the pricing of these units, it sounds like, are they going to be for rent? Are they going to be for sale? Has there been any thought of holding some of the units at more affordable rates to try to address affordability beyond just increasing the supply, which obviously this does? And I'll let you answer that.
Yeah. So thank you for the question. The intention is that all of the units are for rent. There is not a specific affordability program analysis put in here, but I don't know if you have access to the floor plans themselves. But what we have tried to design is a broad array of unit types, which range from very small compact studio units up to some much larger family-sized units as a way to address sort of a larger affordability spectrum.
Sorry, I thought more there. Mr. Chair, one last follow-up on that. Understanding this is going to take a while to build. It's okay if you're not comfortable answering this, but ballpark, what do you think these ideally would rent for from those small compact units up to the largest ones?
Yeah, I'm not comfortable sort of guessing that. It will take several years of finishing out the design work or another year of finishing out the design work and then several years of construction. And it's really hard to predict where those numbers will be, but certainly, the intent is to be in the market of the downtown residential, the downtown residential market. Yeah.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair.
You got it.
Oh,
Commissioner Sejo.
So my question, I'm not sure who, I guess maybe to staff. So, when I was reviewing the, report and ACHD's report specifically, it indicated, and this is expected, right? This is high density downtown, that this development is estimated to generate 1,894 vehicle trips per day. And then ACHD document says that during particular roadway segments, during certain times of day, exceed acceptable levels of service. So what do we do about that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sahal, thank you for the question. So I think the main concern, the main street concern would be Front Street, which is actually under the jurisdiction of state of Idaho Transportation Department. And so that definitely adds some complexity as far as fronting onto a street that turns into the highway connector. So I definitely see your point there. The ITD provided agency comments as well that were that alluded to that they would have a further investigate or review of the traffic impact study.
Can I jump in? I'm going to jump in here. So to clarify on that point, ITD provided a single page in this packet, and basically that page said, we'll get back to you. And Front Street is an ITD state highway. And this is, your building is presumably obviously right there, including construction period, which I'm going to come back to momentarily. But the level of service from ACHD, which does not include Front Street, because that's not their road, but does include some of the adjacent streets, i.e. 10th, 11th, and I think Bannock or whatever it was, which are classified as local streets or collector streets. Those level of services are different than Front Street. Front Street's level of service E in the peak hour, whereas the two collectors are level service D. So the threshold is higher in terms of whether it's to be exceeded or not. So their comment in their staff report basically said that at least in a period of time for a collector standard, those might be exceeded. It also says, and this is a question I would like to ask if I can, it's related to this question. In their staff report, it says that you're allowed to do a shoulder hour analysis. Kittleson's not here, right? So I don't know if you can even mention or discuss, was that done? Because that's something that ACHD doesn't often state in their traffic, in their documents to us. But this is saying, hey, this is downtown, it's unique. There's not traditional mitigation, their word right on page 252, i.e. widening. So we need to look at other things. One of those being a 2-hour shoulder hour analysis. So does that ring a bell at all? I know your traffic folks aren't here, so it's on putting you on the spot, but.
Yeah, Sean Kennedy, architect from GGLO. I can't speak to that specific question. Kittleson is part of the design team and has been working on a variety of analyses, but I'm not prepared to speak to that.
Okay, appreciate that. And this is a tricky one because, man, I want to go, but I also know that this is a conditional use permit specific to the activation of the street level activity site. So something to keep in mind.
Mr. Chair, if I can jump in, I think that that's a good point, just because as you worded it perfectly, the conditional use permit is for the street activation itself. And so the density proposed is allowed by right in the MX5.
Right.
Mr. Chair, and I understand that. Just being cognizant of the traffic challenges down there, is what piqued my interest here in ACHD's response.
So following that up, I think what ACHD is saying is essentially because this is downtown, and again, traditional mitigation, their phrase, traditional mitigation, widening, widening, widening. That's their method. They're saying they ain't buying buildings to widen it to an extra lane. That's what they're saying. However, it does say in here that, and I'll read in this, it says the applicant may suggest feasible alternative mitigation measures beyond improvements from district policy, such as off-site sidewalks, off-site bike facilities, et cetera, within 1.5 miles of the proposed development. However, in the report, I see none of that. There's no recommendations at all that has to do with anything like this outside of the immediate vicinity of the building. Is there anything that can be added to that discussion? Any thoughts on that?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that's certainly under the power of the commission to add the conditions as you see fit. Those weren't included partly because of that complexity that I told you that density is allowed by right, and the street enhancements and the improvements themselves are under the jurisdiction of the state and the county. So the complexity there was rather large, but as you said, you certainly have that ability to add conditions where you see fit.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Moore.
Mr. Chair. So for the CUP piece, the street activation piece, how exactly is that calculated? Because there's, a first level that's, almost all glass. And then there's some upper levels that are more solid. So the street activation is calculated by that first level only. And it's just kind of depending on the use on the other side of the glass and whether or not it's kind of storage, circulation that doesn't have anything to do with the street and things like that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, correct, that's correct. Or sorry, Commissioner Moore, that's correct. The street activation, as you said, focuses on the ground floor. And so looking just past the facade of the ground floor, street activation is typically a clear facade with active users where you can see activity on the inside. So that's how it's classified. The 10th Street frontage does not meet that activation requirement because the facade is not transparent and it's entering into a parking garage. So that doesn't influence public activity through there.
Gotcha. And Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
to follow up on that. So that ends at the first level. So I would guess that anything above that first level, that's not like a street activation thing, and that would fall into the purview of design review.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, that's correct. Above the facade articulation and modulation and transparency will all be covered under the design review application. Or yes, and then it was just the street activation. That's the CUP.
Gotcha. And then Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
for the various variances, that's kind of a piece that I've brought up in the past about the amount of bike parking related to some of these infill sites, especially some of these smaller ones. When you start adding up those 2x6 boxes, it adds up very quickly. Is there any kind of plans of the city to allow certain variances kind of in line with this to help facilitate more infill, kind of in line with what we're seeing on this? That's more of like an overall, but just
Commissioner, Chair, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Moore, not that I'm aware of at this time.
okay. Perfect. Thank you. That's all I got.
Commissioner Chair, question?
Commissioner Stefanczyk.
Yeah, this is a question for the city. So along these same lines for the bike parking, I realize that, when these type of structures are going up, it is really challenging to get the bike parking in. And so we've given some flexibility for them to put bike parking in different areas of the building, and that way. In the code, in the zoning code, right, we talk about that it's accessible. I wonder if we continue to offer these and we start to see developers and builders put them in all these spots that they can put them in, right? That they become, more challenging to access for cyclists, and therefore they're kind of nobody's going to use them. So then it's kind of like, okay, why are we just we're putting them in there to put in there? And it's almost like an afterthought. Now, I'm not saying like we need to build, these buildings for bike parking first. I get it, right? But right, when we try to fit them in these areas and then we're like, yeah, they're accessible, but to whom? And that was what I was trying to illustrate in the point. My first question is, how is an individual going to navigate to these bike parking locations? I'm fine with them being in different locations, but how do you talk to builders in that way on how to make it accessible?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stefanczyk. Yeah, that's an excellent question. Generally, when looking through the development code, the term accessible tends to mean compliant with ADA standards and ProWeg standards. So in general terms, you know, is there a 5 foot wide clear path to each element, and is it not a staircase, right? So that was really given this finding, the understanding that each one of those parking spaces that are throughout the building can be accessed without needing stairs, right? With the elevator, that there's a 5 foot wide pathway to through the elevator to the site. So to whichever level that parking is located. So that was the understanding that was applied to this application.
Okay, and so does it in the code, or is there an opportunity to add that clarity, that accessibility is, I have that 5 foot all the way to that location from the street to the bike parking, wherever that may be?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stefanczyk, I don't think the development code makes that much of a distinction. So how it's written on the screen right now is how it's written in code, without the use of stairs or an elevator. And so, you know, with the understanding that the amount of bike parking proposed, you know, accommodates or requires a large portion of land, the idea is that spreading it throughout with pathways that are accessible to the best extent practical would meet the intent of that. And so the codified statement of without requiring the use of stairs and elevator was recommended approval to deviate from, with that understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Got two quick ones, but any other thoughts real quick for me? Okay, couple quick questions for you. One is on Front Street in particular, how long do you think once you go to construction might, or maybe you won't even need to, but I don't want to be too presumptive, but if you were to have to shut down a lane of traffic on Front Street, how long would that take, you think? What's your general thought on the actual prohibition of traffic flow on Front Street for construction purposes?
Sean Kennedy, architect from GGLO. A construction plan has not been developed yet, but will be as part of the permitting process going forward. A project of this scale, based on past experience, is probably under construction start to finish 30 months or so. With this particular design and the sort of physical structure, the plan will be certainly as quickly as possible to get off of Front Street, load up the top of the parking garage with materials and supplies to be able to then take them up. So I can't give you an exact.
I didn't expect
a general contractor, but
can you swag it?
It's going to be there will be a tower crane at some point that's located on the site, and that tower crane will sort of drive the use of being able to lift up materials up on to the staging areas. So it's at least 12 months, maybe 18 months. I'm not sure. I'm not.
Yeah, it's okay. But give it roughly a year to year and a half where we might see a lane restriction on Front and certainly the other streets, the 10th and 9th, I think it is.
There will be some. I'm sure there will be some just
course.
based on past experience, but I can't speak to
fine.
those. I think certainly there will be every effort to limit that on the 11th and 10th Street frontages.
Okay. My last quick question. I know this is going to come out of left field, but you'll understand why later. $2.5 million. If you were to think about the number of units, and I know you've addressed that question earlier, they go from whatever it is, 600 square feet or something, all the way up to probably 3,000 or whatever your spectrum is. If you were looking at especially the lower end of those, how many units would $2.5 million buy you think, to construct roughly? Could you get 10 more units, 20 more units, 5 more units? What do you think?
as pure dollars in the current sort of mix, it probably would not get more units directly, just simply because the services and the parking is sort of capping that off.
Okay.
But $2.5 million would, if other things were able to work out, maybe it buys another floor of units.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Okay, the last chance.
I'll ask one. I'll ask one of the
All right.
applicant. You put it in my mind, and it's obviously not the project before us, but just for your curiosity's sake, if you were to eliminate some of that parking, the automobile parking, how many more units could you potentially get into this structure?
Well, the math is fairly straightforward. You can sort of just look at the floor plans and extrapolate kind of what's there, because much of the structure of the building is what kind of sets the floor plate size. Based on other projects, we do believe, though, that we need this sort of where we are on the parking in order to make to meet the market in the space.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and open it up to public testimony then. I do have one person signed up, and that is Lori Larson. Thanks for your patience. Appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, just pull the microphone down a little bit and tell us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lori Larson. My address is 149 East Mallard Drive in an apartment unit in that building. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and staff, my testimony concerns the structure itself as opposed to the variances. In correspondence with Councilmember Stead earlier today, I was guided to testify this evening. Thank you for hearing me. The findings for approval of a conditional use permit in subsection B, I, and II are where I locate this concern. I'm requesting substance to proposed use within the economic and financial development of constituents. The land has the ability to provide a home for many. Provided real estate values continue to increase, the proposed apartment tower will be a lucrative endeavor for the property owner, assuming traditional short-term apartment lease agreements. Ethically speaking, the city's proclamation of economic development for constituents is wanted to be identified. I'm interested in the Planning and Zoning Commission advocate with me for leveraging this capital structure. An outcome of improving the economies of rental tenants is wanted. Please consider mandating the developer and property owner allow tenants the ability to include leasehold improvements and long-term leases for development of tenant equity. This mandate would require the developer bare essentials only within apartments, preventing developer inclusion of luxuries. Similar to commercial real estate, tenants then have the selection to gain equity. This equity would be through the leasehold improvements and the long-term lease possibilities. This gain is capable of a win for the mayor's stated strategic priority areas of the city, providing said tenants a home and movement. The movement in this case is growth in financial security. Thank you for your willingness to hear my testimony.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you hanging out and being patient with us. Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else in the chambers who wishes to testify on this item, or anybody online? Looks like no. Okay, well, with that, we'll go ahead and close that, and you'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you want. If not, you can waive that and we can go to a commission decision. Your choice. Or 5 minutes of last words, your choice. That way too.
Sean Kennedy, GGLO Architects, on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for listening to this. It is a complex building, and there's a lot that goes into that. We believe we're trying to make something that's really special and will bring a lot of urban life and urban character to downtown Boise. We have included as for instance, our primary heating system in the building is tapping into Boise's geothermal system, which we think is really exciting. That again is one of those things that takes up part of the frontage on 10th. But it also makes the project really interesting and has a lot of long-term value. We do believe that it'll be something special for the city and for the neighborhood. So thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you very much. And Matt or Crystal, could you please pull up the just the various decisions, that list of the now 5 particular pieces that we need to address? Yep, that's it. Okay, the item is before the commission, and this is item number 3, CUP 25-31 and CVA 25-48, conditional use permit, and the request for 4 different variances that are and staff's recommendations on the screen in front of us. Looking for a motion before we proceed, ideally.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Torres.
I move that we approve CUP 25-31 and CVA 25-48 with all the terms and conditions of the staff report, acknowledging the withdrawal of the 2 variance requests that the city recommended denial on.
And just to clarify, Commissioner Torres, are you also then recommending we approve the 4 variances that are in front of us as well?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very good. We have a motion by Commissioner Torres to approve item number 3, the conditional use permit, as well as grant the 4 variances that are before us, and the recognition that the 2 other variances have been pulled. Is there a second?
I'll second with a follow-up.
Okay. One second, we'll get to your follow-up. So thank you, Commissioner Stallings, for the motion. Is there any discussion?
I'm not sure what to make of that, so I will just discuss based on my original motion.
go for it.
I hear the concerns about traffic and Front Street. I understand the disruption that could cause while this is being constructed. I appreciate the applicant being willing to try to limit that to a shorter period as possible. And I also hear the concerns of the lady who testified a moment ago. I'm not really sure what we can do as far as that goes up here, but I would definitely encourage the applicant to work with the tenants on that proposal if that's something that they're open to. I kind of come back to, like, if there is a single area in the entire state of Idaho that this project is appropriate for, it is the rough area between Broadway on one end, the connector on another end, or 13th Street, University and Americana, and State Street to the north. Like, this is pretty much the densest part of the entire state. It is the only part of the entire state that you can really truly classify as what most people traditionally think of as a city, like that level of urban density that you think of when you think of a downtown of a city. This is a lot of housing. Like, this is dropping a housing bomb in a good way on the city and downtown. You know, we talk about affordability all the time up here. I understand that these units are not designed to be affordable below market rate, but they are a broad range of different styles or sizes of unit. There's a lot of them. This increases the supply of housing significantly in the city, but also just downtown. You know, I appreciate some of the design decisions, the possibility of converting some of that parking into additional units in the future, I think is a great idea. I hear all the time about parking garages, you know, that why can't those be converted into housing? You know, that would help with a lot of housing. There's a proposal here where that could potentially be done. So, you know, factoring in the location, the design, and the number of units, I think this is a pretty good project. Obviously, still acknowledging the concerns about traffic while it's being built. You know, ACHD gave us their concerns. ITD didn't really give us any specifics, and I don't think it's fair to deny the project because we didn't hear from them on it. I just hope that the applicant will work with all the various local stakeholders to minimize the impacts as much as possible while it's being constructed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Torres. Commissioner Stallings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would also like to thank the public testimony about the leaseholder improvements for tenants. I would encourage the applicant to consider this with your client and would love to see more of this in general landlord leaseholder practice in our community. Also do want to thank the applicant for that long-term thinking, like Commissioner Torres said, about conversions, about, you know, different energy sources. This is the kind of thinking that I'm really encouraged by, especially in these immense developments, right? This is going to be here for a long time. Thinking about what this looks in 20, 30 years is really proactive, and I love to see it. I do share the concern about what our ability is to approve or deny this without the input from ITD. I thought that comment from Commissioner Ciaz was appropriate, and it's frustrating to not know how that gets handled and what our authority over ability to make this decision with such a blind spot, such a large, impactful blind spot that impacts the development and impacts the community through the construction and the life of the property in general. So that, I guess, was my follow-up on the second is, I don't know what, as a commissioner, I'm able to deny this on their inability to shine some light in there. But yeah, that was my main concern, I guess, was the traffic density in this area and this added interaction on such an active corridor, and then just off of it and still an active area that's more walkable, bikeable. But yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Mr.
other Commissioner Moore.
So I'm in support of the motion, and just looking at the conditional use permit, you know, I think to me, I do see the reason for a request to deviate from that kind of 80% activated use piece of it. I think, you know, there's no alley to this site. The fact that you're able to achieve 78% activated usage with, you know, the garage entrance, the trash entrance, the various services is pretty impressive, honestly. Just being able to achieve that in itself. And so I'm in support of that. I think there's a lot of things going on along the street that are pretty clever to kind of get some more active uses and to get some of those uses that we want to see on the other side of the glass. So I think I'm in support of it. I see the request, and I see the hardship for sure. So I think it's a clever approach to it.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Stefanczyk.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the building design. I really thought you guys did a great job figuring out with all the limitations of this of the location. And as other commissioners mentioned, I wish we had more from ITD and what that impact was going to be on the building and that access, because you have to funnel it in all on 10th Street there, and that I think it's going to bring a lot more kind of traffic and disturbance when it's built, but you know, that needs to happen. So as I look through these, I want to say yes to all of them, except as my questions indicated, I'm a little concerned about the moving or the increased variance for the maximum for the long-term biking parking that require the use of stairs and elevators. I'd be fine if I felt like they were provided good accessibility, and I would be really concerned about that. Like I mentioned earlier, if we're going to put some of these in here, I understand the design constraints in the space, and we can scatter them throughout the building, right? You know, if I'm on this floor, I come in or I park near there, that might be nice to have my bike there if it's secured in those locations. But some of the other locations seem challenging to get to if I'm coming off the street, or I might not feel comfortable riding up around the ramps to get to that bike parking, and want to use the elevators to get there. Those seem challenging to get to in the current design. So because of that and how this motion is paired, I don't think I would approve it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sehal.
I will be supporting the motion. I do have one comment though. And I think some of us, like Commissioner Torres, we become a broken record in that we know, it's clear our zoning code does not require any kind of percentage of rental or affordable housing. But it would really be nice when we have these large scale developments in the downtown core and other places in town, for developers to really consider, a couple of units. I know that at the end of the day, your goal is to make money. But we also want a livable Boise for all. And that means all regardless of socioeconomic level. And so I just hope that you take that message back.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stone. That's your haven't gone yet.
I'm in support of the motion. I think it's an amazing project. Of all the things I can think of, is sure proves that Boise is growing up. So it's just a fantastic project. And I'm not a cyclist, so I don't quite know all the ins and outs, but it appeared that they did reasonable effort to make all of those things work. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Shape.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I don't really have much else to add. I'll be in support of the motion, and I do want to thank Ms. Larson for her comments on leaseholding improvements. Unfortunately, I'm just not prepared to speak to that in any real detailed nature this evening. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I definitely need to be educated as to how we can make that more of a reality moving forward. But so unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable commenting on that beyond just thanking you for being here tonight and bringing that to our attention. And then I hope we can find a way to incorporate that moving forward, in some of these other applications that we're undoubtedly going to see. So well done with the project, gentlemen. It is exciting. As everybody noted, it's, going to be quite the change for downtown. So, and obviously a huge change to our skyline. So good luck moving forward with construction.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. Okay, I will be in support of the motion. I think it's an excellent project. It is an incredible consequence to our city in a positive way, but nevertheless, it's consequential. And so for that, I'm really disappointed that we did not hear anything from ITD. This is Front Street. It's a major arterial in and out of downtown. It's going to be shut down at least one lane, maybe more, for probably at least a year. They don't charge impact fees. ACHD does. So not only is there not going to be anything on the mitigation of traffic in terms of their system, it's actually going to be impeded for at least a year. We have the responsibility for public safety, health, and welfare, and have nothing we can really do about it because in this instance, we've not even heard from them. And that's really unfortunate. To the applicant, this is where I was going with this, and this is why I think we have a system that is unfortunately quite broken here. You're going to be charged $2.5 million in impact fees by ACHD, more than likely. You have 430 plus units. It looks like they're going to have a $5,000 something per unit fee, $2.5 million, right? For what? What is that going to? Because your own traffic study and their response to you said there's nothing you can really do. However, what they did say, and it's written here on page 252 of our staff report, is that you have every right to look within 1.5 miles of your spot to look for improvements that are not vehicular. We are trying hard to require bike parking, to do pedestrian realm activities, to activate the space. And yet there's not a single requirement of anything within that 1.5 miles. You still have to go to ACHD. If I were in your shoes, I would go and say, can we not write a $2.5 million check that, by the way, can only be spent on congestion mitigation? And that's state law. That's what their interpretation is. Instead, run with that 1.5 miles and say, how about this list of projects that are pedestrian based, that are bicycling based, that are intersection based, Pioneer Pathway, South Part never gets talked about, right? These are things that you could go to for $2 million, save yourself some money, and do a lot of good things with in the downtown environment, because they've already said you can't do anything with vehicular mitigation, right? That's where I was going. The other part of it is, why are you being charged at all? Instead, that $2.5 million to Commissioner Torres and Commissioner Seja's points could easily potentially have gone into units that may be deed restricted in some way, or something that gets to 50 or 60% AMI, right? But there's part of that system. So that is a soliloquy and a half, but it frustrates me to no end that this is the system that we have when there's such an opportunity to improve all of downtown to 1.5 miles. That's a big, big piece of ground in all of the ways that could be. So with that, I will be in favor of the motion. And I think we're all out of comments. So would the clerk please call the roll?
Stanley,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seha,
Aye.
Torres,
Aye.
Stone,
Aye.
Stallings,
Yes.
Stefanik,
No.
7 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Okay, can we take quick 5 and then come in for our last one and we'll be done. Thanks. Okay, I think we're ready to reconvene. I see the top of Matt's head over there, I think. So I think, okay. All right, last but not least, item number 4, but it's got 4 different parts. So we've got CUP 25-21, a modification of a conditional use permit, CPA 25-4, a comprehensive plan amendment, CAR 25-14, a rezone application, and then sub 25-42, a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision, all located at 6300 North Rose Street. Matt, please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the commission. As you said, the item before you is a bundle of 4 applications, including a comprehensive plan amendment to adjust the land use designation from suburban to compact, a rezone from R1A residential large lot to R2 residential compact, modification to a conditional use permit to expand an assisted living facility, and a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 3 buildable parcels located at 6300 North Rose Street on 3.46 acres in a pending R2 zone. So some background, in 2004, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved CUP 04-100, which was a planned unit development comprised of an assisted living facility to be accommodated across 5 units with 15 residents each for a total of 75 residents. And to date, only the southern 2 of those originally approved buildings were constructed. The applicant now seeks to modify this approval to develop the northern portion, shaded in red, with a different housing type and site layout than what was originally approved. So starting with the comprehensive plan amendment, the request is so first the applicant requests to amend the land use map to a designation that supports a more intense zoning designation. As was stated within the project report and is summarized on your screen, the request complies with the applicable approval criteria. And so this graphic shows how the site borders 2 more intensive land uses to the south and west, which are compact and mixed use, which demonstrates compatibility with the area, as well as its alignment with public convenience and general welfare by directing density to an area where it's envisioned to be accommodated. Moving on to the rezone, The applicant requests to rezone the property to R2. As stated within the project report and summarized on your screen, this request applies with the applicable approval criteria as well. This graphic shows how the property borders or is in close proximity to three higher zoning designations, including R2, R3, and MX3 to the south. This zoning layout reflects a predictable development pattern as it locates the most intense land uses along and in close proximity to the arterial roadway, in this case, State Street, with less intense land uses located to the north, in this case, further from the arterial and more internal to that suburban neighborhood. Next, the applicant requests to modify the existing CUP by proposing a different layout and residential use than what was originally approved. In this case, the applicant is proposing a multifamily component rather than continuing that assisted living as was originally approved. As stated within the project report and summarized on your screen, the request complies with the applicable approval criteria. And this graphic shows how the requested modification on the right remains within the scope of the original approval on the left in terms of scale. It also includes enhancements to the site, such as increased setbacks to the adjacent single-family dwellings to the north and east, and more open space for recreation, as well as better street activation to the west along Rose Street. Finally, the applicant requests to subdivide the property with three lots, all of which meet the dimensional criteria of the development code. Shown here are the compliant preliminary plat on the left and the landscape plan overlaid on an aerial on the right. Late correspondence was received prior to this hearing, which expressed concerns that focused on the proposal, mainly focused on the proposal's eastern setback. As stated within the late correspondence memo and project report, the project is supported by guiding documents, complies with all dimensional criteria and neighborhood transition standards. Design review will also be required to further ensure that these requirements are met as proposed. And just a note, a correction to the late correspondence memo that's worth noting is that these structures are proposed as 45 feet tall, not 29 as stated within the memo, which still complies with the pending R2 zone. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the applications listed on your screen.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Is the applicant in attendance? Go ahead and come on up, and if you wouldn't mind, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 20 minutes.
Andrew Wheeler, project architect, 9201 West State Street, Boise, Idaho, 83714. Matt, do you mind pulling that presentation up? Mr. Commissioner, members of the commission, thanks for hearing us out today. I know this is we're a lot on this agenda, and we look forward to getting this project underway. This is a unique property that, as you can tell on the site, it's adjacent to a compact density on the west zone, commercial or mixed use on the south, as well as R2. And it presents an opportunity to build more units. So I've heard several times tonight how we need more housing. This is intended to be a for rent product of two 22-unit buildings. So it's 44 units intended for senior housing. So get into it here. And to kind of just to recap real quick from what Matt has said. So currently this is the current zoning. R2 to the south, that's actually R3 in the dark orange, not R2. So there's both of those uses there. And then you have the MX3 a little beyond that. That R3 zoning, where there's currently 3-story apartment buildings, is about 175 feet away from the corner of the property currently. So it's very close proximity. We do have single family to the north and to the east. And then that R1A zoning on the west side and a little bit to the north, which is intended to be compact on the west side of Rose Street. Looking at that future land use just a little more zoomed in, this really is a nexus between these two uses. It fills this void, and we have 2 vacant acres here. What do we do with it? Do we put 10 homes in there, or do we provide more housing for seniors, which, as you'll hear from our landowner about the need for senior housing in this community. And especially a place that can be a transition. Somebody is living in a single family home. They're tired of the maintenance. They're not ready to go to an assisted living facility. They're looking for something that's low maintenance. They, want to stay in a community, in an area that they might already live in. So that's what we're proposing here. A few images of that aerial graphic on the bottom right of Google Earth image, just to show you that context and the level of density that surrounds the project currently. That open grass field in the upper left of the project site, again, that's that future compact zone. So it's anticipated that the level of density you're seeing here is going to continue to that northwest corner. That top right image is the existing buildings that's 175 feet away from the subject site, which is that red dimension on the left. Now looking a little bit closer at the property, so currently it's operated as an assisted living home and a memory care. So both of those uses are currently going on. We do have you can see that there is a fire turnaround from that initial development plan in 2004, which we are slightly modifying, as well as the stormwater, which we're incorporating. But you can see what a big piece of land this is and what the opportunity that we have when it's nestled in this zone between compact and R2 density. Sort of a mass void diagram just to highlight where the single family homes are on this property. To the north side, you can see how much distance there is between the property line and those homes. And then we do have single family to the east, which in the design, we have been very cognizant of and have mitigated that impact on those residents. Here's some existing photos of the property. So that upper left image, you're standing at row, looking kind of northeast at the current entry into the project. The existing site, view 4 on the bottom right, is the ACHD right-of-way that has stormwater treatment as part of that. We don't own that property. It's a meandering sidewalk currently. We're proposing to keep it as such. You can tell it's in great shape. It benefits the project. We see it was recommended to straighten the north half of that and keep the south half meandering, but in all intents and purposes, it'd be better just to keep it all meandering. And we have incorporated in the project. Here's a few other pictures of the existing site. So looking at the phasing of this project, one unique part of this is we're proposing to phase this in 2 phases, primarily for the final plat. So we're here today to approve the entire preliminary plat, but we would proceed with the final plat as phase 1, where we're literally just parceling off that property. So that's a vacant 2-acre parcel, and then coming back to then do a separate final plat for the infrastructure improvements and have that legal parcel separated. So it's more of a technicality of the final platting process than it really is of changing the development plan. Here's a survey on the left. You can see that, pull out my laser pointer here. The existing storm retention right here serves the site, so we are relocating that. And we are picking up all the stormwater on this component here, as I'll show in the new development plan. The existing Veolia water easement that runs right down the middle, we are looping around and then adding a new 8-inch sewer in Rose Street, as well as extending the sewer about 20 feet south up to this point. The site plan here. So a couple things of what this all started with mitigating the neighborhood, right? That single family residential. We realized that that's a critical piece of this project. We in the northeast corner, originally we did have a trash enclosure there. We had a dog park in that northern component here. And for reasons of, not having dogs next to the neighbors' fences, for getting trash away from the fencing, we've put our stormwater in that northeast corner to heavily mitigate from a buffer standpoint. And then we have just a parking structure here. A single story, covered parking with 10-foot landscape buffers, which meet the neighborhood buffer standards all around the project between the R1C and the current R1A or proposed R2 zoning. On the east side, we have other sections to look at in a minute, but we do provide the 10-foot buffer, 5-foot landscape 5-foot sidewalk, 20-foot parking, 22-foot drive, and then you're at the building. So we're about 60 feet away from at the short end here, and about 108 on the step back from the building B to the north. Wrapping around the bottom, so we did add on the northwest corner, we added an entrance here to mitigate the congestion of the existing facility to this one entrance and exit. On our first pre-app meeting, staff did not recommend that they would allow a second entrance there, and upon further review, that was deemed that we could do a second entrance. So we think that benefits the project greatly by mitigating the traffic congestion. Looking at the landscape plan, so we're heavily landscaping this based on the arborist report and the requirements there. These trees here on the top, these are about 45-foot trees or 40-foot trees, right about 40-foot trees in height and 35-foot width that are along this north buffer. And then here, these octagonal trees are about 40 feet in height and 30-foot wide. Again, all around that northeast corner. And then all along the east side, we have these trees, these maples that are about 35 feet in height, 25-foot diameter. So very heavily landscaped. We also have a lot of landscaping in the middle here, and we see this as with the amenities on this corner, it's a real entrance into the project. Again, this is senior housing. We're trying to have active eyes on the street, if you will, a real community vibe that's going to connect with the existing facilities, get people outdoors and engaged. On Republic Services, so one of the existing trash enclosure is located here. So this is right here in the site. So this photo is looking south, and it's not an enclosure. It's sitting open. This current backup is how Republic Services is pulling in and then backing up and then heading out. In order to mitigate or allow Republic Services to pick up the trash for the existing facilities, we are proposing a new trash enclosure here, which would service the existing facilities. The internal trash rooms for both buildings have trash chutes, 3 stories, trash chutes down to the bins. And we have coordinated with Republic Services to have those staged out front on the drive aisle. We do have the adequate space to do that, which would be positioned by property management. Looking at parking, so on phase 1 or building A here, and it is a little confusing with the phases, so I apologize on that. The phase 1 is, well, we can go into the phasing later, but for this slide purpose, this would be phase 1, which is 27 parking stalls required, and we are providing 30. And phase 2, building B, is 29 required. We're providing 30. So we are parked above the requirement per code. Bike parking, as been indicated earlier, bike parking is challenging to make fit, but we do meet that requirement. We do provide some parking in these garages. So you'll see here, these are oversized garages. So we are providing 1 stall of bike parking as well as a combined bike parking space for people who can't put their bike in a garage if they don't have one, because there's only about 14 garages. But we do meet all the bike parking requirements. This graph here is just showing red, the vehicular traffic circulation, and then blue, the pedestrian. So the one goal of this project was to allow plenty of pathways, connectivity, opportunities for connection for seniors, and to get outside and meet their neighbor, engage with the dog park, the pickleball court. The pink is our public patios, and then the yellow are the community spaces. So a very active front along Rose Street there, and entrance into the project. And we do connect here. This is an ADA offloading area right here. So here and here would also connect to the existing facilities. Now look at amenities. So we provide a dog wash station, our dog park, a pet wash, pickleball court, fitness area, game room, community lounge, large outdoor patios, and private patios at all units. Here's our pickleball court in front of that phase 1 community room, and then the dog park here with the community room and patio on the north building. And here's the patio for that southern building. I just showed this real briefly to illustrate the amenities on the interior. So this would be your community lounge, community kitchen off the patio, and then a double height vaulted space, and then fitness room above. And this is at the southern building. At the northern building, we have 3 levels of amenities: community lounge, kitchen, game room, and a fitness room at level 3. Open space, we're providing about double the open space required, about 15,500 square feet with the requirement of 8,300. So we're heavily amenitized and heavily open spaced on this project. Now looking at setbacks on the north side, so we have 35 feet from the property line to the building. The level 2 and 3 balconies do project out about 2 feet, so about 33 feet effectively at level 2 and 3. 45 feet in the northeast corner is that property line steps back a little bit further, and our drive aisle is straightened out, so even an increased landscape buffer there. This image on the upper right is the structure that you see right here, which is essentially a garage with an ADU on it. So this is not the primary dwelling of that lot, which is located right here. So it is a small, what's effectively used as an ADU currently. This neighbor did attend the neighborhood meeting, did not object to the project, as they're involved in development themselves and understand the need for housing and density. And then here on the east end, we have a 93-foot setback to the single-story structure. So this piece is 1 story for the bike parking. Everything from the stair and over is 3-story. And then we have 109 feet here. And then here we have that 61 feet to the building. And if you take away those projections on those balconies, about 59.6. So fairly ample spacing from that property line. A section looking on Rose Street here on the left, about 108 feet, from providing that amenity space and really opening up to embracing people coming into the project. And then on the right here, where that note C is, that's where about 61'6" back from those existing single family residents. A few views of the elevation, which we can get into in more detail, wherever commissioner would like to go with that. Here again, the same view as that section. This is just showing an elevation. We do have tucked under garages, a lot of stone and good quality materials on the ground floor. And then here on the west elevation, this is the Rose Street elevation. So this is that 2-story community space, double height volume, 3-story community space. And then we have that shared mu, if you will, or paseo through both of those buildings. I'm looking at a few renderings. So this is that same entrance that you saw earlier in the existing photos with the meandering sidewalk. So we are keeping that and integrating that into the pathway around the project. Here's that entrance pickleball court. And that heavily landscaped area between the buildings. And this is that patio, here and here. So a lot of activity going on here. We think this will be a really quality environment for seniors. So this is building to the north facing Rose Street. And now this is that southeast corner looking northwest. And here's that single-story bike parking structure. That's about 90 feet or so from the property line to the east. So with that, I'll stand for questions. We are excited to bring this project to the Valley. We feel that it'll provide a lot of needed housing for seniors and incorporate well within the given context of the current site and the opportunity that this vacant 2 acres provides.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Anything else from your team? You're good. You'll have rebuttal if there's necessary to just FYI.
We did have the landowner sign up to speak, but that can
during
happen
public
now.
testimony.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you very much. We'll next turn our attention to the neighborhood association. This is the Northwest Neighborhood Association and Richard Llewellyn, who's not in attendance or online. So making sure nobody from the neighborhood association. Okay. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to the commission for questions before we come back to public comment or public testimony. Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Torres.
My question's for the applicant. So we received late correspondence from one of the neighbors who was concerned about several things, but one of the things he was concerned about was the proximity on the east end to their west property line where the parking would be, cars would be. He was concerned about car exhaust. I'm sorry, they were concerned about car exhaust. They were also concerned about potential smells from the trash enclosures in that area. I believe they also mentioned the pickleball courts and concerns about that as well. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to address those concerns and see if you've had any discussions with him about how to mitigate those.
Mr. Commissioner, Commissioner Torres, appreciate the question. To take those one at a time, so east end parking. So we are currently meeting the 10-foot neighborhood buffer plus a 5-foot sidewalk, and then we have the parking there. So we're meeting the intent of the code as far as separating those vehicles from that property line. There are plenty of examples where you're a lot closer than that to an adjacent parking lot. And so we don't anticipate that being a big challenge from a vehicle exhaust standpoint. As far as smells in the trash enclosure, that was a very direct, as I mentioned earlier, concern of a neighbor where we had the trash enclosure exterior out there. So we have brought the enclosures internal to waste rooms. Those by code have to be vented. And we don't anticipate any challenges with that as far as, especially somebody who's 100 feet away, to be able to have any impact on the smell of the trash room.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, Chair.
Mr. Stefanik.
Sorry, it's a follow-up question to the applicant. Hi, thanks. I know there's a lot of us who's talking. Can you explain how this trash room works? I haven't lived in an apartment building. So they have the trash chute that will go down into one of these trash rooms, right? But then what are these other, like this exterior trash room that's near the parking in the lower right-hand corner, white, yeah, right there. How does the trash, nope, the one that's white in the, oh, sorry, you were down bottom right-hand corner. Yeah. How does the trash get there? And how is that enclosed?
Mr. Commissioner Stevenchik. Got it. Great. I appreciate the question. So the question is about the external trash enclosure.
Yeah, this external one. I get the internal ones and that, but there's another one here. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's a standard trash enclosure, 12 by 18, typical that you'd see in any multifamily project. I mean, it's above and beyond what's currently being provided, that there is not an existing trash enclosure currently. This would be what you, whoops. Sorry, goofed you up there, Matt. If you could, well,
I can see it. I'm looking at it on my screen. Yeah.
So typically those are built, CMU wall or something to that effect with an opening on that east end. And that's where there's a sidewalk there to that opening, which then somebody can enter, throw their trash away, and exit. We do need to make them accessible. So enough space there to be able to navigate around those 3-yard bins. And then on trash day, that is Republic Services comes up, front picks, backs up, and then loops around that road.
Okay, but the trash in the trash room, does that have to get from there to there, or do they pick it up in the trash room?
Yeah, so completely separate. So the exterior trash enclosure in white that you see there is only servicing the 2 existing buildings, not servicing the existing, the new proposed construction at all. Those buildings are serviced with the internal trash rooms. So it's 2 bins with trash chutes. So your people at level 3 aren't dragging bags of trash, through the hallway. We worked extensively with Republic Services on this. The bins will be rolled out by property management, and that we have bollards against the building to prevent damage to the building. We have 22 feet. You need 16 to allow a car, vehicle, or truck to get by, and then that leaves the 8 feet for the, 6 feet for the, 8 feet for the dumpster bin to sit there temporarily. And then that's once it's picked by Republic Services, then it's moved back in by staff management, property management, back into the trash room. We do have to always have 1 bin under the chutes at all times, and we've worked through that with Republic.
Okay, cool. Thanks for explaining how that all works.
Yeah, and both buildings have the same condition, same situation, 2 separate trash rooms. So 3 total trash enclosures, if you will. And
then the one in white here, that's the one you talked about in your presentation about moving because of how you had to change the driveway. Is that
actually it was in the northeast corner that we had one originally. Okay. This sort of came up later, actually. We were already submitted then. Yeah. So that came up later from Republic Services about, hey, we won't service that bin because we need to back up. And so we were, asking, well, can't you come in here, turn, back up, this is a hammerhead, if you will, right? But they won't back up and on a radius. That's the crux of the issue. So we needed a way to be able to have them service the existing enclosures within the context of what we had in this layout.
And then, so this extra one, does it have a wall around it?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's a full enclosure, CMU wall, metal gate, visibly screened.
Cool. Thank you. Sorry for all that.
Oh, thanks for the question.
Mr. Schaefer. Thank you. Yeah, so just to clarify, so that is the one in the southeast corner there, that is just a standard CMU. It's not a fully enclosed building.
No, yeah, it's an open air.
Typical open air enclosure, a couple of bins inside.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I believe that was the one that the late correspondence was referring to and that I was referring to, just to clarify. So I do have another question though. Understanding these are designed for people to be able to potentially age in place, housing for elderly Boiseans, can you address affordability? You've heard me ask it about the other two projects today. Are these going to be available for sale, for rent? Do you know what they're roughly going to go to? And will any of the units be deed restricted to meet some kind of lower AMI than, whether it's 80, 60, 50, what have you? Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner Torres, appreciate the question and your diligence on those questions, each applicant. These would be for rent, market rate. So they are not intended to be deed restricted or for sale.
Follow up on that?
Go ahead.
Do you know roughly, I know everybody dodges this question, but I'll ask it again anyway. Do you know roughly what they might rent for? I know obviously the market rates can fluctuate and all that, but do you have a rough idea what you're thinking as far as those go?
Yeah, I think, Commissioner Torres, the reality is that we need to make these projects pencil. I mean, at the end of the day, it's expensive to build, and yes, we are a business to make a profit, but we also are trying to provide a great product as well. And so it's the nexus point of, where does that market rent and the amenities that we're providing and the value that we're giving, how does that, how does the consumer see that as value? So I don't have a specific number, but it's infill projects are expensive. I mean, you're still paying for the sewer, you're paying for the road, you're paying for the water, and you're only, spreading that out over, 44 units. I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like a lot, but those costs run up quick. And we are, with the infrastructure improvements that we're making to Rose Street, which is only going to further aid the compact development to that western side, as far as bringing up the sewer, the new 8-inch water line in Rose Street. I mean, those are costs that we're having to bear now and are going to, be an economic driver in the future.
So I'm going to ask a quick follow-up, and it might be for both of you real quick on this related note here. So I know in our staff report, I see a senior living complex is the intention. I think I only saw that written though once, and it might have only been in your section. So can you verify that that's the intention of this project, that it is a senior living? And I'm guessing, I'm approaching 50, so please be gentle. Is it going to be 55? It's going to be 55, isn't it?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate your comments. So this came up early on. Mark Maxfield, who you'll hear from earlier, is the current owner of the cottages, owns and operates the facility. He doesn't want 25-year-olds speeding a car through here, and both posing a risk to his current residents and not aligning to that vision of the holistic of the whole of the project. So it is, yes, intended for seniors. It's not age restricted. So it's not if you're not 55, you can't live here. It's the intent to do that without putting a specific restriction to it. And however, we are happy to, if there's a mechanism of tightening that up somehow that commission or staff would want to do. I mean, we're open to that.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the applicant has proposed a multifamily development. So the part of the conditional use permit is that it's changing the nature of an approved use to allow for the multifamily, for the northern portion of that site to be developed with multifamily, not assisted living. So that was taken into consideration in the CUP modification, and the standards as far as most things that are going to be required through design review, things like open space, parking, that will all of those criteria will be under the multifamily development.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, clarify, these are independent living. So this is not assisted. There's no, so it does function as a multifamily, for the use of it, but the market that we're intending to live there is the senior.
Got it. I got it. Okay. I think Commissioner Saya, you had a question.
I guess maybe I'm a little confused. Yeah. Mr. Chair, I do have a question. The application provided and the staff report also speak to the fact that one building could be individually, or let's see, one would be a rental structure, multifamily, and the other one would be individually owned. But yet what I heard you say when Commissioner Torres asked, you said they were all going to be rentals.
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, Commissioner Seha, that is correct. And the initial intent was that we were going to have half of the buildings be a for sale product and half are for rent. We've since revised that to full for rent.
Okay. I didn't see that in the application.
Mr.
staff
Chair,
report.
Commissioner Seha, thanks for bringing that up. The mention of that in the project report was taken straight from the letter of intent. And so there's no, although there's been a change in the plan, there's no condition that would affect the ownership versus renters of the 44 units that are proposed.
Mr. Chair, if I may. As well.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Joe Dodson, planner with the project team. I guess my home address 1027 West 12th Meridian. So the other component of that would be, which is a great question as well, and I did include that in the letter of intent. They still have that option. The owner still has that option after the preliminary plat is approved, because we would be condo platting it was the original intent, which is done through the short plat process. So it's not that we're prohibiting ourselves or the city is prohibiting us from doing that. It's just not part of the current proposal. But I do know that the owner has discussed having that option in the future. But you're right, that is not reflected in the narrative, that the more recent changes to keep it for rent for now.
Okay, other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Stallings.
Question for the applicant. On the IL/AL senior living, how does the lack of that definition, but your target audience, fit into equal housing and fair housing law? Can I ask that?
Mr. Commissioner, Commissioner Stallings, that's a good question. We are letting the market decide on how that's going to be best fit, for the, we're balancing that act. I mean, the intent is we can't say no, only these types of people can live here, and we're not deed restricting it or making it an age restricted development. We're going to mitigate the intent is to attract that senior community to the project. Outside of that, I mean, there's not really much we can do to stay within those fair housing guidelines.
The oddity is I think if it's declared 55 and over, it actually covers what your concern is, because if it's unofficial and you therefore say to someone who's 49, you can't be here, then it could be what you're trying to get at. There's the oddity. That's a whole other that's not germane to this particular hearing, but it's, I think part of what the concern of the commission is, especially given in the application, we hear that is intended to be a senior complex, and the intent, especially near the memory care facility or the assisted living and all of that. So the march of age, if you will, is part of the discussion, I think.
Mr. Commissioner, if I may, the product type, I think, is going to also drive that. These are 1 and 2 bedroom units. So we don't have 3 and 4 bedroom family units. So that is a component of that.
Very good. Other questions? Click, you might have had one. No? Commissioner Schaefer? Yeah. Okay.
I think I'll start with Matt, but I might come to you guys too. Matt, what's the story? I was curious about the streetscape on Row and the existing sidewalk, meandering sidewalk, but I see on the survey there's a 25-foot storm drain easement, and it looks like that runs the entirety of Row Street. Because I noticed the new developments to the south, they don't have any street trees in the planter strip. Is that all driven by? This is a kind of unusual, right? What's the story there?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, yeah, that is a good point. So breaking this off into 2 portions of the sidewalk, through the planning team's review, it was determined that since no development is occurring on the southern half of the site, that there's not the proportionality to require detached sidewalks there, new detached sidewalks. So focusing on the northern portion where the development is proposed, as you said, so the applicant submitted a waiver request, a sidewalk waiver request, because Row Street is a local street. So its standard improvement would be 8-foot wide detached, 8-foot wide landscape buffer, 5-foot wide detached sidewalk. So this, and as Mr. Wheeler alluded to as well, this sidewalk is recently installed. It's 5 feet wide. It does meander, but it meanders around infrastructure, the storm drainage. It also meanders around existing street trees. So that was kind of, taken into consideration as far as the nexus of new versus existing infrastructure.
Gotcha. Okay. And I don't recall another situation where we have a storm drain easement like this. It's kind of unusual, right? Because I looked at that development to the south. It's fairly new as well. They must have that same condition. Is this just is Rose Street unusual with that for some reason?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Schaefer, I can't speak for Rose Street entirely, but I can speak for the shape and the location of the easement is rare. It's not having a storm drainage easement adjacent to the right of way like that on the subject or on private property is rather rare.
Yeah, and maybe you gentlemen know too. It's an ACHD storm drainage easement.
Commissioner, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the ACHD report, their recommendation was to straighten the north half and keep the south half meandering, which I touched on earlier, which just seems incongruent to a cohesive development plan, especially when the sidewalk's in great condition. It adds value to the project rather than takes away.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Mr. Chair, one question.
Commissioner Moore.
I haven't done any of this one. So that kind of just to follow up on Commissioner Schaefer's line of questioning. So ACHD wants to straighten out that sidewalk. You guys don't. What's the city's?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, thanks for bringing that up. So ACHD's agency comments did not require any modification to the sidewalk other than the northern and southern portions that they terminate at the northern and southern property lines, not out to the street. So that was the only site-specific condition. The determination of whether the existing sidewalk meets code and would be granted a waiver was determined by the planning team, not ACHD. So ACHD's only conditions were to have the sidewalk terminate on the northern and southern property line so that it can continue, because right now it dumps out back onto Rose Street at the curb line on the northern and southern portions.
Okay, so Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
the city is okay with it meandering, that you just wanted to terminate on the sides instead of at the street.
Commissioner Moore, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Last call. Looks like we're good. Okay, we're going to go ahead and turn this over to public testimony. I have one person signed up, and that person is Mark Maxfield. Where you want to testify, you're more than welcome to. If you do, name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mark Maxwell, 6300 North Row. Actually, very excited to be here tonight. I know my time's limited, so I'll be brief. I am the CEO and owner of the Cottages, Assisted Living and Memory Care, the other facilities that was in reference there. I've been doing that for 25 years, 22 buildings through the Treasure Valley, starting from Weiser all the way through up to Mountain Home. I'm been on the National Assisted Living Board for 12 years, current chair. Before that, I was on the Idaho Healthcare Association board for 13 years and chair. I tell you all that just to tell you that this has been my life's work. This is all I do is senior housing, senior care issues. If I'm an expert at anything, it's these type of issues. You guys know as well as anyone since 2010, 10,000 people a day have been turning 65. That first 65-year-old is now turning 80 this year, and we're going to have a serious need for housing and places for seniors to go to. Currently, there's I think 13.7 million people in the country over the age of 80. In 25 years, that's going to double the 30 million. Where are they going to go? What sort of services do we have for them? And that's why I'm in favor of this project. I'm the owner of the land there. Initially, I was planned and approved for a 5-building assisted living there. I think it would do well. I can fill it. However, because of current staffing requirements, it makes sense to have smaller campuses than have them in various parts of the city just to do better at staffing, which is always a problem, as you know. Yeah, I think this project is good for the community. My vision is that we'll be 55 plus. If there's laws or codes that prevent me from saying that, so be it. That's what we'll attract. That's who will want to be there. Be a nice transition from those that want to move on to cross the parking lot to assisted living and memory care. I think it helps seniors. Many seniors stay in their homes too long. They fall, break a hip, they skip assisted living, they go right to skilled nursing. This will help provide at least a small part in helping those that want to age in place and transition to their housing needs. So I'm excited about it, but of course I stand for questions, please.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, I have nobody else on the sign up sheet, but anybody who wishes to testify, more than welcome to come on up. And yep, please do. And if all I ask is you state your name and your address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. Then if you could pull that microphone down a little bit,
My name is Vaughn Clark. I live at 6475 North Fairfax Avenue, and I'm on the east. We live on the east property line, and I attended the neighborhood meeting, and Andrew here told me to fly a balloon to see about my height and proximity concerns. And so I did that, and we found it to be objectionable. Particularly the phase one aspect of this, the east facing building, the height and proximity they're objectionable. They're too close to my backyard. And let me see here. We had an overall concern too about the height and proximity of the east facing building, but we also were worried about the parking lot along the east property line, our west property line. It's right on the other side of our fence. And as it was brought out before, the exhaust and the noise, we find objectionable, and we would ask you to disallow this. It seems to be that east-facing building, if they would eliminate the pickleball courts or the dog park, it might be where they could shift the whole building, shift the whole complex to the west, away from our property line, and that height of those inhabitants peering down at us, and so close to our property line that we suggest that they eliminate either the dog park or the pickleball court or both, and shift the whole complex west. And let me see, I also, the parking lot along the east property line and the garbage dumpster sites to us are intrusive. We live just west of, the phase one building is our greatest concern, the east facing phase one building, the height and proximity. And I'll just leave it at that. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you for hanging out with us. Okay. Anybody in the back want to testify? We're good? All right. I don't think anybody else is online. So with that, we'll go ahead and you'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Mr. Clark, appreciate your comments. I wanted to note that at the neighborhood meeting, when I touched on earlier that we had Matt, could we get that presentation up real quick? And we had the project actually flipped, although we did not have that northwest entrance, so we didn't have a loop road around there. And actually the buildings were north-south oriented. That's what we showed at the neighborhood meeting. So this project, imagine, is rotated 90 degrees. And we had the whole broad side of that building facing the east. And then we had the dog park in that pocket to the north. And then in the northeast corner, we had the pickleball court. So for all the reasons of stepping back the building and trying to limit the width of the building that fronts the eastern side, as well as pull all of the noise mitigation measures, dog park on fences, pickleball court up against there. We pulled all that to the opposite side to create it more of that entrance focal point. So I just wanted to highlight that that was a big part of the benefits of going to this plan. There also is we are proposing a new fence along that. I realize that's a 6-foot fence. It doesn't fully address the concerns, but that is part of the plan. The landscape plan, I can time me out on this. If I can go to that real quick here. Yeah. So here again, we have 35-foot trees all along the eastern boundary, full, 25-foot canopies, 40-foot trees in the northeast corner, and then 40-foot trees on the north side. So this is a very heavily densified from a landscape perspective. Also, when you're looking at the existing, do an existing photo here. On the lower right, so actually Mr. Clark's residence is, I believe, the arborvitae there on the right. So there's already intense screen currently existing. So that is not something that we're providing. Obviously, it is just an existing condition that's worth noting. I'd also like to note that in the R1C zone, which is what is surrounding this property, 3 stories is allowed. And you're never going to put, in most cases, you're not going to have a 60-foot buffer on an R1C zone in a 3-story structure. So, I mean, the fact that we're providing that much of a buffer at the smallest portion, when we have 109 feet to 93 feet, and we're being very sensitive to those adjacent uses, I think we're addressing the concerns as best as we're able. Any infill project is going to have some contentious issues with nearby residents. And we're looking at serving the greater good of the city and doing our best to mitigate the challenges that it's imposing on neighbors in the surrounding area. And our intent is fully to be good neighbors and to provide a great project. So it is not to simply shove this project down anyone's throats by any means. The trash enclosure, there is a mitigation measure that we could do that may help. You can see here that the trash enclosure is tucked pretty far back here. Our radius for that fire would kind of roll about here. So we could probably, push that trash enclosure a little bit further away, get another 5 feet, maybe 8 feet from there, just to increase that buffer and potentially increase some heavier landscaping around that as well.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
I know it's unusual to ask a question at this time, but it's germane to his presentation right now. So I was hoping to just make one clarification.
Okay. Whoever Jermaine is. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Mr. Wheeler, I just want to make sure the parking canopies, are they flat roofed? Is this it might just be a graphic representation. It looks like a hip roof in the plans, but I think that might just be more to show that there are covered parking. And then the rendering show a flat roofed canopy. Is that the intention, that they're a flat roof canopy?
Yeah. Mr. Commissioner Schaefer, yes, yeah, good eye.
Okay.
Yes, that is shown graphically as a hip roof. We likely will do them as a flat roof. We are open to either option. I think a flat roof, especially on the east end, is going to be a better fit.
Yes.
So yeah, we definitely do that. And we would make them all the same for just simplicity.
Sure. And that's where I was going with it, right? The gable or a hip roof structure is much more visually intrusive, right?
Correct. So high side on the west, low side on the east.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Chair.
Okay, we good?
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes the hearing portion, and the item is before the commission. Bear with me. We have 4 different things here that we need to decide on or suggest to council on, one or the other. So let's see, we have
comprehensive plan amendment and a rezone, both of which would be recommendations to council. We have a modification to a conditional use permit, that would be us, and then the preliminary plat, which is also going to be recommendation to council. So one is deciding CUP 25-21, the other three are recommendations to council. Let's say you haven't made
All right,
one. Let's go.
I seconded the first one.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve CUP 25-21 and recommend approval of CPA 25-4, CAR 25-14, and SUB 25-42 with all of the terms and conditions as stated in the staff report.
Matt, do we have to have any specific language with regard to the extension of the sidewalk? I think we've got that in our terms and conditions. Okay, just making sure. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. We have a recommendation to approve CUP 25-21 and recommend approval for the other three that would go to council. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Seha. So we have a second by Commissioner Torres or Seha. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Mr. Wheeler, appreciate the presentation and ownership. Appreciate the presentation tonight. Yeah, I have very little concerns, honestly, about the project. I think the site plan and the arrangement of everything looks really positive. You know, the amenities to the west side, I think, are an appropriate move. Just given a bit more active, have a little more noise, activity. Pickleball is a very loud activity. So I think pushing those amenities to the west side and creating that entrance into the development is a good move. And I think it protects the neighbors to the east with some more privacy. To that end, though, of course, as you mentioned, Mr. Wheeler, there are always impacts to surrounding neighborhoods with developments like this. And, you know, I think when I look at it, I understand Mr. Clark's concerns and I appreciate those, but, you know, the buildings are set, you know, well beyond the minimum setback for either the R1A, the existing zone, or the proposed R2 zone. So I think that you've done a nice job creating separation for the main structures to the adjacent developments and existing homes. And I think at the end of the day that parking on that east boundary is more appropriate than some of those more active uses like the dog park, which could create some more noise on a regular basis, and or the pickleball court. So I appreciate also the efforts to study and maybe potentially push that trash enclosure a bit further from that property line. I think the neighbors would appreciate that. So I would encourage you guys to explore that in greater detail. But all in all, I think the use is appropriate for the ground. This is an infill development that the city is supportive of, and support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. Any other comments? Ready to go? Yeah, very good. Okay, I'm just going to make a quick one. I appreciate you coming out, Mr. Clark, and I don't normally address anybody specifically, but I think given the circumstances, I think it's important to do so. I think what the applicant pointed out and also what Commissioner Schaefer pointed out is important. This ground is zoned right now R1A, right? And so as per our existing code right now, anybody could come in, including the applicant, the landowner, and build standard homes, right? Standard single family home up to 35 feet. And the rear yard setback in that zone is 20 feet, which means that from your fence line to basically the end of where they're proposing to put the parking stall would be roughly 20 feet, could be the beginning of a 35-foot structure, right? That's per code right now could be done, which would be a lot closer to what's being proposed. And so I agree with Commissioner Schaefer. I think that the project is a good one. We clearly need the product in the age in place notion of things. So I commend you on that. I understand your concerns. I hope
this at least helps a little bit with the explanation. I think that your arborvitae, their landscape plan and the setback should be a pretty good thing. And they're not gonna have a bunch of partiers unless they're Commissioner Schaefer in their 60s playing pickleball. So anyway, all right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Danley,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seha,
Aye.
Torres,
Aye.
Stone,
Aye.
Stallings,
Yes.
Stefanik,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carried.
Great. That concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you.